it's Taylor Swift's favorite number. So it's going to be our favorite podcast here.
Yes.
On Tackle
Yes.
Pod. Week number 13, okay? It's a majestic number, right?
I wore it in baseball for a long time. When
I was my favorite now. I'm like Taylor. I was born on the 13th. I turned 13 on Friday the 13th. I wore 13 in every sport. So I'm with her. And I'm with you, Dion Clisso of Preps KC on this Week 13 podcast.
I was 13 in baseball the first few years because nobody wanted it, so I took it. And then I didn't really, not until later in life, as I learned about one Ted Williams, that's what number I wore. Then from now on, 9's been my
9
baseball number. It's also Roy Hobbs's number.
Yeah, it is. 9's a good number.
9's a good number. 9's a good number for baseball. I had in football, I had 65 the first time.
You were not a running back then. Got it.
New linebacker, lineman. And then my favorite number was 51, and because my father, huge Dick Butkus guy, sorry to see him pass, but 51 was I was playing middle linebacker, and I 51. I love that number. So
yeah. No, I get it.
Basketball, I'd say 42. Not that I ever got to choose a number.
Over the map.
42, James Worthy, baby, big game, James.
So the Shaffer family's had 44 through everything. That's been that's the number that I determined for my kids who were always big kids, but I wanted them to have the opportunity to carry the ball. So 44 still allows you to do that, but it's also a good number for basketball big men as well.
Yes.
You can basketball. Can't do numbers above or digits above 5 in basketball. And then in baseball and soccer or whatever, you can wear whatever number you want.
Yeah. My son, given his current state, 1 is good, 7 is good.
Yeah.
In the pencil, but they don't. As of right now, he's got basketball starting up here, a little rec basketball. Don't know what numbers we're going to get in that. There are no numbers in swimming, so
there's not. No, that'd be hard.
That'd be hard. Yeah. So there's no numbers in swimming. So that's his. Whether he likes it or not, that's probably his future.
All right. Hey, here we go. Let's look back before we look ahead of week 13. We'll look back on week 12 here, which was the final 8. I don't do sectionals, regionals, districts, whatever. I talk layperson terms here.
Yes.
You can talk the technical terms. I do. It was final 8 last week in Kansas.
Quarterfinals.
Final 16.
Sweet 16, I guess.
And
you can say Sweet 16 or district championships. Now that they all Class 1 won't have their district championships until this week. But everybody else 2 through 6 was district championships or Sweet 16. Sweet 16 for everybody.
Tournament has it figured out. They have it figured out.
And trademark.
Everybody knows. What round are we in? Sweet 16. I know there are 16 teams left. What round are we in? Final 4. I know there are 4 teams left. In high school sports, in sub-state, in basketball, everybody goes to sub-state.
Yes.
Kansas.
Yes.
In sub-state football in Kansas, 4 teams go to sub-state. That's it. So
I refuse to use the term, though I will say how they run their sub-state basketball in Kansas is way better than what Missouri does in district basketball, where they have a neutral host and it can be 5, 6, 7, 8 teams. And you get down to the final and maybe the host is in the final, or maybe somebody's close, or you got 2 teams like, say, Blue Springs and Lee Summit driving to freaking Columbia to play a game in front of people who don't care unless it's their parents. Where in Kansas, they put them in the sub-state little brackets, 4 teams, higher seed hosts. And I'll tell you right now, the night St. James beat Baser Linwood at Baser Linwood a few years ago, I did the Spectrum game there. Wow, that was rocking. What a great atmosphere. One game, but boys and girls play different places. Oh, it's just fantastic. Missouri could learn.
Game called it something different.
I think Missouri is starting to lean that way. I mean, football, higher seed hosts, that goes on. In basketball and other sports, there's talk of them going to, in the first few rounds of district, higher seed hosts, because I'll bring up softball. Blue Springs South was the number 1 team in the state, number 1 team in their district. They had to go play Grain Valley in the semifinal. Fort Osage and Grain Valley had to play a first round of softball game in Columbia. Blue Springs South had to play Fort Osage in Columbia. Now, at least Columbia Rockbridge made the final, so at least there was a Columbia team in the final with Blue Springs South. But those are the kind of things that just makes no sense, especially when you're playing night after night after night. You got to get in a bus, drive to Columbia, which Columbia is not even that far. There are others who have to make worse drives. So hats off to, this is the rounds where teams are hosting. And now on the Missouri side, at least, you have to play the who's hosting game.
Yeah.
On the, what year is it? How many games have you hosted or should you have hosted? If we top bracket, we bottom bracket, who's going to go on the road? I feel like I have to teach myself that every year. So, if you're a team like Rockhurst, you're on the road last week and if you win this week, unless Oak Park wins, you are at home again. So actually, Rockhurst is home again if they beat Nixa, because they're on top of Oak Park and they would have hosted the same amount of games. So it's fun. Last week had some great action. We'll start on the Kansas side. And I'll start in 4A. Tonganoxie with I did some quick research last night, and if I am wrong, somebody please tell me. I do not believe Tonganoxie's ever played for a state championship.
Oh wow!
I went and looked. There's a site that has some really good stuff. It's Kansas football history, and I looked through, not necessarily pouring through it. I looked through it somewhat quickly as I was writing the Big Three. They are a game away from their first state championship game, hosting an Aquinas team who hasn't been in a few years when they were in 5A. And like I said in the Big Three, these two teams are part of the devastation of the 4A bracket. This is number 5 versus number 6. 1, 2, 3, and 4 are gone. And taken out by these two teams.
I think on the west side of 4A, you've got chalk at this point. You got 1 and 2, Amigo and Over Central.
Yeah. So, I mean, hats off to both these teams who are playing fantastic and had some losses in their seasons and have bounced back. Close losses. Both teams had some close losses and stayed with it. I would lean to Aquinas as the favorite. Their defense is playing lights out. They got some big boys up front. But, Tongie's got some offensive dudes. Isaiah Holdhouse, their receiver, Colton Breslin. I think I said his name wrong there. Their tailback, quarterback's really good. So they can get the ball up and down the field. I think both these teams, no matter who wins this game, should be feeling real good about where they're at and how their season has been. And I think it's, Aquinas isn't necessarily new blood, but they haven't been to a state championship game in a while. They've lost in the semis a few times over the last few years. So, but Tongi, good run for them, no matter what happens from this point on. And I don't know, we'll see what happens. I mean, I think, Wamingo's a pretty good team. Andover Central's a pretty good team. 4A feels a little more openish than it has in a long time. So it's going to be, a great
time game. A non-private school won 4A?
Probably Lewisburg in 2011.
The year before.
No. Rose Hill won back to back over Eudora, I think. And did Lewisburg in 10? Maybe Lewisburg was in 10 or 11, and then Rose Hill beat Eudora in back to back, maybe in 12 and 13. I probably had that available on a site called something that I might know something about.
I'm on it right now. Yeah, we'll find it soon here. But yeah, I was wondering about that because if Aquinas wins this year, it would have been Aquinas, Miege, St. James the last 3 years.
Aquinas won 6 in a row, then St. James won 2.
Miege won 6 in a row.
Yeah, I was going to say, Miege won 6 in a row.
All right, 2012, Holton won 4A. 2013, Buhler won 4A. And then starting in 14, Miege started their run of.
Is that in the 4A 1-2? Was Eudora in the 4A 2? Is that where?
So then for a couple of years, it was just yeah. So in 14, from 14, 15, 16, and 17, that was it, right? 4 years, 2-2-year cycles. You had Division I, Division II. So you had Holcomb winning in 17. They were 4A back then. Wow. You had Pratt winning Division II in 16. In 15, you had Holcomb again. In 14, you had Andale winning at 4A Division II. But now they're back to just 1.
Okay. 10 was Lewisburg. 11 and 12, or 11 was Rose Hill.
Yeah.
And then 12 was Holton and Buhler.
Yeah.
I think that Eudora made it to back and lost to Holton, and they made it to back to Rose Hill and Eudora and Holton.
Yeah.
Greg Webb's teams. Yeah. So that Lewisburg team was 2010.
Yeah,
really good team.
That's 4A. We'll just move on up to 5A here. Blue Valley Southwest and Mill Valley have just kind of been on a collision course for each other. They get each other at Blue Valley West coming up this week. I tell you what, Southwest continues to roll. This team, it seems like a team of destiny this year. No problem through the playoffs so far.
Well, and the thing that's impressed me, we know they can score points. Their defense has played really well the last few weeks.
They got a defense now, man.
Yeah, and if their defense plays well, Mill Valley has been offensively challenged at times, though they're coming off scoring 72 points, so that sounds odd. They've hung 70 twice this year. And when they're going, they can play well, but if they're forced to throw the ball, I know that that can be an issue sometimes. Defensively, I think they're really good, but they gave up 40-some points to Topeka Seaman, who's a good team.
Well, Seaman is, does the same thing Southwest does, throws it all over the place, but Southwest has so many more weapons, right?
Yeah.
We've seen them all year long, but yeah, that's the scary part. We've seen them put up 50 and 60 points, and then they kind of win a defensive battle last game, holding a team to only 10 points. And I think they've given up a total of 19 points in the previous 2 games of that. And so it is a complete Southwest team this year that has just kind of rolled through the toughest league, right? In the EKL.
Blue Valley hanging out in 6A.
Yeah, we'll talk about them.
4-4 team that was
well.
3-4 going into their last game of the regular season. But no, Southwest looks like they've got everything they need. And for the first time in a long time, Mill Valley is not the favorite heading into a semifinal.
Yeah, I can't tell you the last time it's been. They haven't been.
That says a lot about Mill Valley's strength and how they've been. That run they were on, but at the same time, Blue Valley Southwest, they've taken those steps, and now this senior class is really kind of taken all those steps. And the next step is to get to a state championship game and then of course win it. And probably Capen on the other side is what I'm thinking.
Yeah, Capen's they've shown in the playoffs here. They've shown some the chinks in the armor here. I mean,
I don't think they're as dominant as
they thought. They barely got by Great Bend the round before that.
Yeah. No, I think whoever comes out of the East is going to be the favorite. I don't. It's been that way for a long time, so I'm not. It's not like I'm pulling that out of nowhere. But no, it's I like the way Blue Valley Southwest is playing. And like I said, the defense is what's got me leaning towards them. Haven't made my picks just yet.
Yeah.
But no, Goddard, Eisenhower, and Capen on the other side. I think the winner of this game probably is the favorite to win a state championship.
All right, let's move up to 6A here. Gardner Edgerton, impressive win over West. Again, they play defense as well.
We don't talk about their defense enough.
But then one of the big surprises of the night was Blue Valley. Not only keeps rolling and gets a win, but doubles up Olathe North 42-1.
They had the punt game at Olathe North is, as was described to me by another media member who shall remain nameless, is the worst he's ever seen. They really struggled. Their punt game. They got one blocked for a touchdown. I think they got another one blocked. I mean, it's and you give away points at special teams, it's tough. That being said, the defense of Blue Valley allowed them to kind of jump out in front of Olathe North, and Olathe North was chasing all night. Yeah. And then they gave up a touchdown on special teams, and it's you're kind of back there. So hats off to Alan Terrell and that coaching staff and what they've done. They were 3-4, and then going into week 8.
And now they're Olathe champs, Dion. They beat Olathe North, they beat Olathe East, they beat Olathe West in the playoffs so far. Gardner, not in Olathe. That's a little bit.
Yeah, and it's funny because last year it was the Olathe schools that were dominant going into this round. Olathe Northwest was in the semifinals, and you saw that. But no, it's going to be an interesting one. I mean, Blue Valley's they've got some dudes, they got some big time players, but Gardner is probably as big and physical as anybody. Been there, done that. I mean, it's been since 2019 that Blue Valley's been in the semis. They haven't been in a state championship game since 2016. Eric Driscoll's last year before he passed away. So, which shows how tough 6A has been.
6A playoff could be the last 6A game for a while because they're
going
next year
down along with Aquinas, who's going up.
They would love to take that trophy with them.
Yes, but I think Gardner,
Gardner's just kind of quietly done their thing, right?
Yeah, they've just handled their business.
Against Olathe East, and then since then it's just been they have just kind of just put teams away.
Yeah, and the winner of that's going to get the winner of Washburn Rural and Derby, and I know Derby beat Manhattan 23-21. That was a back and forth game last week.
That was needed for Derby. Manhattan had beat them 3 times in a row. Manhattan kind of broke Derby the last couple of years.
Yeah, so they may be just name brand. I feel like Derby's coming out of the other end. I think they've been there so many times.
Undefeated. They beat Junction City twice this year. Yeah. And did they beat Manhattan too? They've had a nice year.
They beat Manhattan.
You always wonder about the schedule, right? As Derby kind of been through the more battles and everything. But I'm telling you, Washburn Rail's got some guys. They got a couple twin linebackers that just committed to K-State, or at least got offered by K-State, and so there's some guys on that squad.
And they beat Wichita East, who hammered
Yeah.
Wichita Northwest the week before. And a Wichita Northwest team that I think a lot of people thought was going to be the team who's going to come out in the bottom half of that bracket. So, but good for Wichita East. It's one of the best years they've had in a long anytime. Washburn Rule has done anything need to be asking them. Kind of like Manhattan was last year. Kind of quietly, they're ranked number 1. So it's not like it's quiet anymore. I mean, but they're like Manhattan last year. They just kept winning. Didn't really matter what happened. They just kept winning.
Yeah. All right, let's skip on over. That's it on Kansas, right? We got 3 games. 3 games in the Kansas City area on the Kansas side, 4A, 5A, and 6A semifinals. We starting in Class 1?
Yeah, let's do Class 1.
All right, let's move our way up. Class 1, we've got North Platte, Windsor, Penny playing. Who's in your coverage area there?
Penny and North Platte are both they're both in that KCI conference. North Platte beat Crestridge. They get Windsor, and Windsor plays down in the conference with like one of the conferences with Adrian. Some of those, there's 2 little sections of that conference. Windsor is dangerous because they have been there. They won a state title a couple years ago. Good coaching staff. I think North Platte's probably a little more battle tested. I think they played a better league, but Crestridge kind of hung with them there for a little while before they pulled away. Penny's the one playing with house money. I mean, they finished middle-ish of that KCI behind East Buchanan, Mid Buchanan, North Platte. And now they're rolling through. They're playing at Milan, which is the hometown of one Greg Oder, former Blue Springs South coach.
Milan, Kansas is my wife's hometown, by the way.
Yeah, I love the fact that names you've never heard of.
Right? It's in lockstep with all the other famous sounding Missouri towns. They pronounce it a little bit differently. It's not Milan, it's Milan.
Milan, much like Nevada, not Nevada.
Versailles,
yes. So. It's good for both these teams that there could be an all KCI semifinal next week if both these teams win, which would be cool in Class 1. So it's good for those teams. They made that change and only had 36 teams in Class 1, and it moved out some of the heavy hitters like the East Buchanans, Adrians, and teams like that, and it really opened it up for some of these teams. North Platte's not that far removed from like a 30-40 game losing streak. Penny's always kind of been around. They're always a solid team. They've got, they had a run where they won a state title in Class 1, got bumped up to Class 2, won that state title, and then came back down to Class 1 and won a state title a few years later. So I don't know if they had the athletes like when they had Kellen Overstreet and his 3,000 plus yards rushing back-to-back years, but they've got some good players. Alex Lloyd, their coach, does a fantastic job. And Jared Quickly, the coach of North Platte, he was the Chiefs Coach of the Week. He's going to be in the finals for Coach of the Year. Done a fantastic job turning that program all the way around. So Class 1's kind of fun to see those 2 teams in.
Class 2, you got a couple of teams that have been there before, a lot of times before. Lamar and East Buck. They're not playing each other. Buck against Bowling Green, Lamar against Lafayette County. How do you see those games shaking out?
Well, I'm sure Steve Cook at Lafayette County is thinking to himself, really, Lamar again? As I've said before, if Lamar didn't exist, we would probably be talking about Lafayette County and their 4, 5, or 6 state championships, because they've had teams good enough to win a Class 2 state title multiple times in the last 13 years.
Be fair, we want Lamar to exist. If they didn't have as great a program.
Yes, and that's a program that's, hey, Adrian kind of hung with them for about a quarter and a half, 2 quarters. I mean, they were leading at one point. And Lafayette County hammered St. Michael. Now, defensively, they gave us some points, but St. Michael's a really good offense. But and the other thing is too, this isn't a shock to Lafayette County. They played Lamar, lost to a state championship game, lost to the semis, lost to the quarterfinals. I mean, so they're not, they have experience there. They're not scared to go to Lamar and play. I remember a few years ago driving down to Webb City to watch Platte County Webb City, and then go over to watch Blue Springs, Kirkwood in a state championship, or was it Kirkwood? No, CBC in a state championship game in Springfield. Stopped in Lamar, and this is when they were on their streak, I think, of 8 straight. And all it said over the fountain station in the McDonald's in Lamar was Lamar football state champions. They didn't list the years. And I was assuming until further notice.
Take up too much of the sign to put all the years.
I think basically they wanted to put until further notice underneath it. But they didn't. But yeah, I just said state champions. There were no years listed because they won like 7 or 8 in a row.
Yeah.
And I think this is a gettable Lamar team for Lafayette County. And Steve Cook, his fantastic job. they do such a great job at Lafayette County year in, year out. They've got great athletes, but they don't have athletes. I mean, they've had some really good ones go through there. There's a kid, I'm missing his name, who plays in the NFL now as a D-back for them. So that's a good one. And then East Buchanan's, they're playing tough.
They've won 2 straight. Is that right?
2 straight in Class 1. Word on the street is that their fantastic running back Klein was on the sidelines with appendicitis last week.
Oh man!
If he does not play, they have a tall task, and they're battling some injuries. Bowling Green's pretty good. Their tailback went for 400 yards last week against South Shelby. So the strength of East Buchanan this year has been their defense. They will be tested. And I think it says a lot about East Buchanan, that they're where they're at after being in Class 1 for 2 years to be in a quarterfinal with a chance to go to a semifinal in Class 2. But it's going to be, both these teams have tough road games, and Bowling Green's, not close. There's not a great way to get there. Either, drive to Hannibal and then drive south, or drive to St. Louis and then drive north. And there's not, it's going to be some bus time. But East Buchanan's done that. They went on the road 2 years ago in the semis or in the quarterfinals, I think. So they've done that bus time. It's a good team, good coaching. But both the Kansas City teams, or the Metro teams, they've got tough tests in the quarterfinals in Class 2.
Yeah. All right, let's move up to Class 3 here. And up there with the Blue Valley win last week, I thought was St. Pius just dismantling Maryville. What a performance there. They move on to take on Odessa. I can't wait for this one, man.
Well, and both these
Saturday
teams can
game
score.
too.
Saturday game looks like the weather's gonna be good. Both these teams can score. Really, last week was Pius at its strength. They ran the ball, played great defense. They've got a great quarterback, great receivers, great running. All phases. Odessa's defense has been tested. They've given up some points, but they get a good win. And they're moving on over California. And these are teams that are used to playing in this round. These Pius kids under Coach Simone have really been, in this spot for a lot the last 3-4 years. Odessa, even though this is their first, they didn't win the district title last year. They're used to being here. Odessa really probably should have had a state title probably in 20 if they didn't get COVIDed out in the district final. They were the best team that anybody'd seen. You talk to anybody, that team was as good as anything. So it's definitely a matchup of Titans here, and 2 teams that are going to be really good. I think it's going to be a great game. I think it could be a high scoring game if Odessa can get their offense on track and find ways to score on that tough St. Pius defense. So I think it's either going to be Pius pulling away from Odessa because their defense has done a good job, or it's going to be a shootout. I think that's how it's going to go. And if it's a shootout, it's anybody's game because it gets crazy. And both well coached. And
once again, these are all quarterfinal games, Elite Eight games in Missouri. Normally, they're in line with Kansas for the most part. For the big classes, at least, having
Class 6 was, they were in line with Kansas, but
lining up to play state next weekend. But now all of them are playing.
1 through 6 will be
in December.
In December in Columbia, including 8-man, which is like a Thursday night, and then they do 3 on Friday, 3 on Saturday in Columbia.
Speaking of Saturday games, another one, Nevada at Kearney. Why are we doing all the Saturday games, Dion?
Well, the state passed the district round. They designate the games on Saturday for travel. If both teams agree to play on Friday night, they can play on Friday night. Sometimes, it's a 1 o'clock time, but then it can be moved depending on different things, but they basically, because you have some games where teams are traveling a ton. Some teams want to play on Saturday because also if you kind of get into a Saturday mode, especially if you're playing a Saturday state championship game. Like if you're in Class 4, you're playing Saturday morning at 11 o'clock in Columbia. And so, Class 2, you're playing it at 1 o'clock or 3 o'clock, and then Class 6 at 7. And the same way on the Class 3, 5, and it goes 3, 1, 5 on Friday. And they do that. They used to go 1, 3, 5, 2, 4, 6. But when they're trying to clear out the stadium between games, they found it was tougher to get Class 3 and Class 4 because there was more people out of the stadium, and easier to get Class 1 and Class 2 where there might be less people to clear out. And that was a thing that they did start doing in the Dome. And then because they were time crunched in the Dome, because they paid by the hour at the Dome, to rent that facility. Columbia, they have a little more leeway, and they were able to spread out the games a little more. And they really haven't had the problem they used to have in St. Louis, where you'd have a 7 o'clock start that was supposed to start for a Class 5 or a Class 6 game, starting at like 8:30 at night.
Yeah,
because they were so far behind. So now that's the kind of the Saturday thing, and it's different. There's a host of reasons, whether it's the travel, whether it's gamesmanship. There's been some of that, like, oh, they want to play on Friday, we're going to make them play on Saturday just to get under their skin. I mean, that has happened. I know that has happened. I know coaches have told me they've done it, and I know people who know that had it done to them. So, and there's just sometimes it's just, there's, they want to do on Saturday. So that's kind of how they lay it out, and it goes from there. But no, Saturday, it makes kind of nice. I mean, sometimes it makes that Friday night. We've got games on Friday night. There's no doubt in Class 5 and Class 6, and definitely Class 5. If you're in that Friday night state championship game, I know a lot of coaches want to stay on that Friday night thing if they can.
Yeah,
and that's what Webb City and Grand Valley do in Class 5. But Nevada and Kearney.
Yeah, let's talk about Kearney's win. First of all, they flipped the script on Smithville.
Really, and I shouldn't be stunned by it, and I wasn't stunned by it because Kearney had been playing really good football for a long time. I don't know, sneeze. It's catching. Abby
maybe Smithville lost, which was early in the season.
Yeah, first time Smithville's lost in a long time. So and Kearney has been playing really well. They're healthy. They weren't really healthy in the first part of the season. They lost their quarterback, so they were kind of scrambling with that and getting things going. This is a team that expected to be in this spot. Most people expected to be in this spot. Bill Oots beat them, Platte County, early in the season, and he told me, "Don't cry for Kearney; they'll be fine." And that's great for him because he didn't have to go play him again. Smithville had to play him again, and it's just exactly like last year. Smithville lost the regular season game, won the postseason game. This year, Kearney lost the regular season game. Kearney won the postseason game. So good for Kearney. Looking to get into the semis for the first time since 2016. They had lost a lot of games in a row to Smithville in the postseason. It had been a while. And when you're going, I think they had played, they may have played either 14 times in 7 years or 16 times in the last 8 years. They had played twice a year for like 8 straight seasons. And I think Smithville had beaten them 4 or 5 in a row in the postseason. So Kearney got that one back. I think they could get Nevada. Nevada's pretty solid. Their losses are to Seneca in Class 3, who's undefeated, in Lamar. But I think Kearney has played, they played Platte County. They played some really good schools, played Fort Osage. So, I mean, they played up and based on their schedule and played, the good Smithville, a Raytown South team who's really good in Class 5. So good for them, the way they played. And I'm going to make them a favorite. I'm pretty sure I'm going to pick them too.
Yeah. All right, up in Class 5, one of the great games from last week was Grand Valley, 2-point winners over Platte County, speaking of Platte County. And then another team, Kansas City's team, taken on from kind of that same area of the state as Nevada and Lamar, is Webb City. They're always going to be there. That's the matchup on a Friday night in Class 5.
Yeah, Grand Valley jumps out to a 24-0 lead. Ty Williams has like almost 200 yards in the first half and 3 touchdowns. Gets nicked up a little. I think kind of is spotted in and out in the second half until the final drive when they needed the field goal and he was in there toting the rock. I haven't checked in with Coach Alley yet on his health. I'm assuming he's going to play. But he finished with another 230 yards, 3 touchdowns. So he's sitting at 23-11, I think, and 32 touchdowns in 11 games.
He can get to 3,000.
He can get to 3,000. He's got 3 possible games left and 700 yards needed to do it. He also has 500 yards receiving. He has 12 catches on the season
and 500
yards receiving.
Oh my gosh!
Averaging 32 yards a catch, or like almost 3. Maybe it's like 400 yards. He has 12 catches. He has 5 touchdowns receiving. So when they have thrown it to him, he has made things happen. And a lot of them are, a couple of them are just short little screens that he took out in the flat and then, ran over the first guy and then ran away from everybody else. So yeah, he definitely, and you're right, Webb City's going to be a test. You don't see split back veer around here. And there's nobody Grand Valley's played that does that. Oak Park is a kid run option, but they don't run split back veer, which is different. I think size wise, Grand Valley's probably in a good shape, especially offense against defense. Webb City lost a couple games, lost to Carthage, who's an okay team. Lost to Nixa, it was a good team. So they've, this isn't the big bad Webb City that's got the big guys and they're running veer at you and their defense is unstopped. You can't score on their defense. If Grain Valley's defense can figure out and slow down Webb City enough with their offense, I think that offensively they can impose their will on that Webb City defense. This is the spot Grain Valley needs to get past. In Class 2, they have been to the semis. They have not done that. They have won 5 straight district titles, and this is where it has ended.
Grain Valley in Class 2. How long ago was that? Actually, probably
I was at the Examiner.
Yeah,
there's the Examiner. In my lifetime, they were in Class 1 because as a small child, we lived there for a few years, and I can remember going to games when I was 5 and 6 years old. That was Class 1 football. So no, it's Grain Valley. This is the spot right here. You beat Webb City, probably get Republic or Helias at the next round. You should be hosting. If Republic wins, you're staying down south. If you're an NFL team, I'd just say take the week off and spend Thanksgiving in Southwest Missouri if you wanted to do that. Yeah. It's like an NFL team, but no, if it was Helias, they would host, and then Cardinal Ritter sitting on the other side of the bracket. So there's a lot out there for Grain Valley. They got some teams they got to beat. They got a good win over a Platte County team that is probably a year ahead of schedule. We'll probably be talking a lot about them next year, but good win for them in Class 5.
Yeah, absolutely. All right, let's take a look at Class 6. Oak Park, I believe they're the only undefeated team left. Yep. Now we got East Buck. They're undefeated, Lafayette counties. But of the bigger schools, they're the only one undefeated left. They major in winning close games, Dion.
Yes.
Can they do it again against Liberty North, which might be the best team in the city?
I don't know. Hats off to Oak Park. They got up on Park Hill. And then Park Hill started coming back on them. Got the score to make it 17-14. Got the onside kick, drove down, and Oak Park intercepted in the end zone to seal that game. There's been a few games like that for them in the last few weeks, and they've had to come back where they've been trailing in the second half or even the fourth quarter by multiple scores, and they've come back and won. I'm not saying you can't do that against Liberty North, but Liberty North spotted Blue Springs 21-0 2 weeks ago and outscored them 71-10 down the stretch. Both these teams want to run the ball. They want to play defense. That being said, when they need to throw the ball, I would lean towards Liberty North because I think they've got, Jay-Sean Ross, Keelan Smith, and then Tillman Martin. Their quarterback is really good. The one thing that I think is going to be interesting is when Oak Park has the ball, they're going to have to throw it. Liberty North is not going to let them, run at will. Trayvon Pankey's a great tailback, but Liberty North will do something to slow them down. They're going to have to throw the ball and butcher their receivers. Outstanding track star, can get up and down the field. He will possibly be matched up against Ja'Cory Love, who's playing cornerback, as well as, so there's some big time matchups here between big time athletes that if you're Oak Park, you maybe haven't seen in all those different spots that Liberty North has. Not that that's an indictment of Oak Park or the teams they play. Liberty North is that team that has all those guys in those spots. So there's a reason why they've been ranked in the top 2 or 3 all season long, and why they're the prohibitive favorite probably to come out of this part of the bracket and their little quarter of the bracket. But Oak Park, like you said, start winning games close. Belief is a funny thing.
Yeah.
I mean, and you get a team like Liberty North who really hasn't played a close game, even being down 21-0 to Blue Springs in the first quarter. There was plenty of time for them to rally. I mean, Blue Springs South got to within a score a couple times, both times they played them, but they haven't been down in the second half since Lee Summit North in week 1. Mm-hmm. I mean, that's a lifetime ago. So they haven't been pushed. So you don't know. We'll have to see.
All right, we built up to it. Rockhurst taking on Nixa, but let's talk about last week's game, knocking off Lee Summit North 24-21, and we've probably all seen the non-catch that was rewarded a touchdown to Rockhurst. What do you make of that game, and what do you make of Rockhurst's chances against Nixa?
Well, I picked Rockhurst in that game. I thought they would kind of do what they did, keep it close, play tough, physical, and that's what they did. That call is unfortunate. Is it,
I don't see how that. Maybe the back judge had it right, called it incomplete.
Called it incomplete.
Somebody talked
there was a penalty. There was also a penalty on that where Rock was going to have 1st and 10 at the 18.
Yeah.
It was also the second quarter, not late. I can take you back to a Kearney Fort Osage game with a very bad blown call. And here's the thing. I think I'm not going to harp on officials. They make calls. It's going to happen. There's going to be stuff that doesn't go your way. right, wrong, or indifferent, whether it's just a miss or they didn't see something. I'm not going to harp on officials, because if we harp on officials and we rip on officials, guess what? We're not going to have a game in 10 years. So that's off to the side. But you have, I mean, it's something that happened. And we go on. Rock, though, was Rock. And that was tough, physical football. And Lee Summit North matched them toe to toe for the most of it. And at the end, they had the ball and were driving and fell short. So that's how close those two teams were. Hats off, Lee Summit North had a great season. And I think that Rockhurst, they ran into a Rockhurst team that's playing its best football at the right time. It's a very senior heavy team that is ready to go. They've got Nixa. Hey, Nixa's a good team. And here's some fun facts about Nixa.
Yeah, well,
they have a kid,
home of Jason Bourne, right?
Huh? Home of Jason Bourne, yes. Also the home of one Jackson Cantwell. Does that name sound familiar to you?
Yes, yeah.
His father was a Missouri shot putter, Olympian Christian Cantwell. Young Jackson is a sophomore who's 6'7", 300 pounds. Plays tackle. He's also started to sneak over to the defensive side of the field. Rockhurst has a guy who's 6'7", 300 pounds named Andrew Sprague, who's going to Michigan, who's also started to sneak over to the defensive side of the ball.
Wow, okay.
And made some big hits, like some guys who play offensive line are nasty and can play defense and play with that edge. But some guys, a lot of guys aren't. That's why they play offensive line, because there's a level of nasty on the defense that you got to have to play that side. Sprague looked like he had that level of nasty. So those are two guys to keep an eye on. The thing that was brought up to me by one Cole Young is they've got a great head coach at Nixon. Came up from Mississippi where he won state titles. He's everybody I've talked to that's talked with him, they run a great program. They've got great players. To which Cole Young said to me, everything I've heard is great about this guy, but as his offensive coordinator, Tom Cruise, and as his defensive coordinator, Greg Oder. Because that's what Kelly's got going on over there. Yeah. and that might be the difference. I mean, when you've got those three guys, which is, a
lot of hardware,
more rings than, a lot of hardware between those three guys. So I think Rockhurst is playing great. I think it's gonna be a fantastic game with Nixa. I don't think anybody should just think, oh, well, it's Nixa from down. They're good. They're good. They knocked out Ray Peck last year. They gave Ray Peck everything they wanted the year they won the state championship and more. So they've knocked out Lee Summit West a few years ago when Lee Summit West was pretty good. So don't think, Nixa is good enough to win a state championship. Don't think that this is just, Rock's going to get it done and we're going to have Rock against Oak Park or Liberty North next week. I think we will, but there are no guarantees.
Yeah.
And by the way, Cantwell and Sprague, if they happen to match up, those are two guys who legitimately could be playing Sundays.
It could open up like some like Tesseract, like a sliver in time. Yeah.
MCU there.
Yeah.
My knowledge is very little.
Let's talk Simone Award here. We still like Ty Williams on the Missouri side. Is Dylan Dunn the favorite on the Kansas
I think
side?
Dylan Dunn, and you got some different guys out there too. I think Bryce Nurnberg, Offensive Player of the Year in the Sunflower League, is a guy to
tell me. I've seen this kid for 3 years. K-State's offered him now.
Yeah.
So
I think he's a guy. I like TJ Porter. They got beat. He had enough game. He's got his numbers when he's on the field are great. I don't think he's got enough numbers. A guy like Ethan Hansen, quarterback at Rockhurst. He's kind of their leader. A guy who's a wild card out of Rockhurst. And I haven't talked to Kelly about this yet and know what they want to do. Isaiah Coppage, who plays a little running back, he plays anchors there, linebacker. He's kind of, he's going to be a Buchanan guy probably, but he's kind of one of those mixes. Something that was brought up to me, a guy's name that you would think Buchanan just because he's a defensive end. Jay Sean Ross at Liberty North has scored defensive, offensive, and special teams touchdowns. Not a lot of snaps on offense. And he has multiple touchdowns and out of his 15, 20 catches, I think there's 5 or 6 touchdowns. Has scored on defense, wrecks defenses. To quote one John Holmes, when they were looking at Rockhurst film and a coach said, "Man, that right tackle's not very good." John Holmes said, "No, that guy there is really good." Talking about Jay Sean Ross. And he's blocked 4 kicks and run one back for a touchdown. Man, he's impacting all phases of the game. That's a guy to keep an eye on. And as we go into the getting the ballot together, the media committee does this upcoming weekend. That's a guy to keep an eye on. So it's, you got Dunn, you got Nurnberg, you got Rockhurst, Jay Sean Ross, Tillman Martin, their quarterbacks had a good year. There's Elijah Leonard, at least I'm at North, as a guy. I think that it kind of makes them go. So those are, the quarterback at Gardner, though he doesn't put up great numbers, but he makes that offense go, and they're really good team.
Powell's had a great year, right? And whether he needs to run it, throw it, hand it off, whatever it takes.
Yeah. So I mean, there's a lot of guys out there with their teams have done well. That it's going to elevate them there, but you do have 3 or 4 that are kind of maybe sitting above right now, just because they've got the counting numbers and their teams are doing well. And Ty Williams on the bench a little bit in the second half, and Platte County's, coming back on him, and then they put him back in the last drive. Coach Walms told me, he goes, yeah, he was nicked up, but he came in the last drive and he was carrying the rock on the last drive when they drove down to get that winning field goal.
Yeah, it's like Williams and Dunn. I mean, they both have the numbers that nobody else has, and both have the wins as well. What about Taylor Award? Who are we looking at?
Well, you've got both receivers from Southwest.
Yeah,
and
Everard
you've got
Parks. I mean,
you got Mosey, you got Keelan Smith, Mosey from at least I'm a North, Keelan Smith from Liberty North. I mean, there's a lot of guys. We talk about the Holt House kid from Tonganoxie, Lexington Grafke from Lansing, 1,000 yards in only 8 games. Those are the Crew Myers kid from Blue Valley West, 1,000 yards. There's a lot of guys with right there. Tommy Hutzler from Pius, 1,000 yards. Now, this is before last week. We haven't updated stats just yet, but no, there's Quinn Conley from Warrensburg had 1,000 yards in 11 games. So there's plenty of guys out there that have big time yards and are doing some good stuff. So it's a deep field. And I think, when you've got 1, 2, 3, as going into last week, when you've got 7 guys with 1,000, 2 more with 900 plus that are probably over into 1,000 right now, and probably another couple guys who could go over if they play a little deeper. Yeah. Out there. I mean, Hutzler's going to go over, or if he's not over already, so that's kind of the way there. And that's a good one there. Buchanan is probably the deepest. You've probably got 6, 7 guys there. You've got 2 guys from Lee Summit. You got Williams Winery, and the other guy, I'm totally blanking on his name, is their defensive tackle. You have Melvin Laster, who more than one coach has told me is won 2 in a row and is better this year than he's been the first 2 years he won it. Yeah. And that says a lot about him. You've got some good guys. Blue Valley's got a couple guys. Well, I watch Jaden Woods Friday night. Jaden Woods. Rex games, the #1 recruit in the state of Kansas at Mill Valley, Dion. He's wrecked games this year. Yep. Yeah. I mean, Sprague at Rockhurst. I mean, especially he's playing both ways. That definitely gives you a sense of those groups. And no, it's that one's the one, last year, Caden Green and Laster were the 2 guys that really got things going. But no, it's definitely the Buchanan group is one. When you look back, that's where the guys who are suiting up on Sunday played a lot. No, you're right. Yeah. So it's Brett Carroll, lineman from Olathe East, another one too. So there's some good ones out there. Like I said, it's going to be a deep field in that one. All right, we've talked long enough. It's maybe our longest of the week. Pretty close. Podcast. By the way, thanks everyone for watching, whether from Topeka. We love you in Topeka. We love you in Jeff City, even though you may not love us sometimes. But from capital to capital, buddy. Us stuff. Just fine with Jeff City. Capital to capital. We've got listeners all over. So welcome to listen to us in Lincoln and Oklahoma. Yes. Too. Yes. We reached our highest numbers last week that we've ever had. So we've grown it every week. So appreciate everyone. Love the feedback. I always love the feedback. We love doing this. Though Mick doesn't love doing it past football season. We're going to try that again this year. We'll see and see if I can get him convinced. I'll get AI involved here, and that can be, I can have AI Mick Shaffer help host it. We may have to, I may be angling with my business partner who's good at finding sponsors, angling to a sponsor, make it worth your while. Right, there we go. Yes. Pay to play, maybe in the offseason. NIL for NIL for podcasts. Yeah.
All right, Dion, thanks so much. Check out Dion's website, prepskc.com, all day and all night long on Friday. And then check out Under the Lights on KSHB 41 for pretty much all the highlights that'll be going on Friday and Saturday in Kansas and Missouri. Good luck to everybody. If you're out there still playing on your games, may the force be with you, all that stuff. For Dion and Mick, we'll see you next time on Snap Tackle Pod.